When Charles City opened Iowa's first Whitewater Park in 2011, they started a new trend for our waterway-rich state, turning a dangerous dam into a kayaking, tubing, and fishing mecca.
In 2015, Manchester joined the action by transforming their local dam system into a whitewater park. After more than 100 years of generating power and milling grain, the Maquoketa River is now one of Iowa's great recreational attractions.
The term river town is evolving.
I grew up as a child in this town back in the 1960s and 70s, and back then the river was really a place to be avoided. There were some trash dumps along the banks, high weeds. It was a place that your parents definitely did not want you as a child to be hanging out in.
While still a huge part of a community's identity, Iowa cities like Manchester are starting to trade in their dams for recreation opportunities and gathering spaces, transforming an unappealing remnant of the past to something entirely different.
If you came here 4 years ago to see what we had going at this location, we basically had an old mill dam, and it had not been used for generating power since probably the early 60s, late 50s, early 60s. It's only been in the last 5 years that we've really put the big push on to turn this into a highlight of the town.
Manchester found inspiration from its northern neighbor, Charles City, who in 2011 used a devastating flood to transform its community riverfront into the state's first whitewater park. Community improvement officials considered following Charles City's lead as not only a benefit to the town, but Northeast Iowa in general.
We looked at how this will change our community, how it will improve the river, how it will improve fishing and habitat here, how it will provide recreation for our residents and even draw people in. A lot of people bought into that. This is going to be a really good thing for town.
And only a few short years later, the Whitewater Park has done just that. New businesses have opened, aquatic life is flourishing, and recreation has skyrocketed. Paddlers, kayakers, and fishermen have flooded the riverbanks of Manchester, taking everything the park has to offer and leaving only waves in their wake. One of the biggest champions of the town's efforts is Manchester native Hannah Ray J. Childs. As a well-known local paddler, Hannah and her peers used the success of the Charles City course to push her hometown to expand the state's whitewater offerings.
We got our first one in Charles City. My good friend Ty Graham actually got that one off the ground and going, and he's like, you know, if Manchester is even thinking about doing anything in their town, he's like, we should do a whitewater park. And so when the Good to Great committee formed and was like, we need to do something with the river, I was like, I know what we should do. So I brought him over and we pitched the idea to Manchester, and they took it and ran with it, and now we have a whitewater park.
With Manchester now in the game, Northeast Iowa has 3 parks for paddlers to choose from, including Charles City and Decatur. But what makes the Manchester Park special is all the different challenges it offers.
It's 6 distinct features. Each one of the little rapids is different at multiple levels too. The first one is like very big and splashy and powerful, and the next 2 are kind of like more beginner friendly, and then the next 3 are really stacked up against each other so it can test your skill level at multiple different water levels. There really is something for everybody, whether you've been paddling for years or it's your first time.
Above the water, paddlers and fishermen are having the time of their lives. But the park was built with more than recreation in mind. Below the surface, fish are celebrating in their own way.
Here in this part of the Maquoketa River, there's quite a few species. You know, it wouldn't be surprising to find, let's say, 50 species of fish or so. A project like this allows an opportunity to open up sections of the Maquoketa River and allow these fish once again to move through this area of the Maquoketa. And so far they've seen 9 species of fish move through this dam since it's been modified, something that wasn't happening before, so that's a pretty interesting thing from a fisheries side of things.
Dan Kirby, who also grew up in Manchester, personally misses the fishing spot the old dam provided, but says removing the dam actually improved aquatic habitat and offers multiple fishing avenues that simply didn't exist before.
I mean, it's an improvement in my opinion because of how much attraction it gives to like families and other people that want to come fishing here. It's just a real easy spot to go fishing on the river. I can say, go check out the Whitewater Park. It's pretty cool and most people are going to enjoy it, and they probably can catch a fish too.
One of the things I found very interesting is how people come down here and they just hang out and they talk to each other. It's just exciting to see that type of community interaction that I'm sure it happens in other places, but it happens more here than it has in other areas.
One of the reasons I was so for this project to begin with is not just for me and for the river, but also for the future generations. I have grandchildren growing up in this town. This gives them a golden opportunity to actually get out and enjoy nature, develop a respect for the river and everything that it has to offer.
And if the most visible water park visitors are any indication, Doug's hopes are being realized.
I come up here about each weekend to either Charles City or Manchester City. We go do downriver races. We also just tube sometimes when we just want to go tubing, I guess. I gotta say it's one of my favorite things to do.
With whitewater fun taking off in Iowa, other communities are starting to consider removing their own dams. Most noticeably, the Des Moines River, right in the heart of the capital. And if Manchester had any advice, it would be go for it.
Well, I think they should take the plunge because it really does build the community as a whole. If you already have a river in it and you're willing to embrace it and get the people interested in it, it's going to be better for the health of the river, the health of the town, not only for like the people in the community, but the wildlife that live in the river too.
It was exciting to be part of it. It was fun. At times it was challenging, but those things come with all projects, but overall it was a great experience that I'd do it again if we had a chance.
I think every community's got to look at their community. They need to look at their dam and their river and how they use it. This type of thing may not make as much sense if it was outside of town a little bit and they didn't have all the great interaction with the businesses and everything right in this area.
There's room for more because you don't really compete against each other. You're actually partnered with each other. And if a person from out of state will come, they'll spend a week or two in an area where you have a half a dozen of these going from place to place to place. So in the end, it really brings in more people to the state. It's a great state economic development tool as well as local.
As more water parks are established, the idea of what's possible on an Iowa river is changing, leaving a history of dams behind for a future of whitewater creativity.
I don't know what they'll be doing 50 years or 100 years from now, but I bet you they're going to be fishing still, and if there's still water activities, they will be on it, they will be coming.